Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 30th day of April 2025. Already the end of the month and ready for May. And actually, I'm really ready for this because, you know what? I don't know about you guys, but it seemed like it was a weirdly long winter, and I'm ready for some warm weather. I'm ready for bees. I'm ready to be outside. I'm ready to get back into life, the outdoors world again. And I think a lot of people have the same sentiments. I hope you guys had a great week and a great weekend. I was actually up in New Hampshire at the National Constitution Party committee meeting. It was wonderful. We had a whole bunch of speakers there that were from the John Birch Society, which was really very interesting. We were talking about the problems with the Convention of States, which I am totally against the Convention of States. I don't think that we have the integrity right now to touch it. And there are other reasons why. This is a long argument and quite honestly, a very good one to get into. And I'm going to interview one of the main speakers for the John Birch Society because he has a real compelling argument on why we need not to do this right now and why it's a very, very bad idea. And I'm going to stand on that. I've been saying that for a very long time. Today, we're going to have Liberty Essentials on with Bill, Karen, and Ralph. And then after that, Shelly Lake is going to be on with Stephanie Beltinck. And we're going to be talking about election crimes. I think this is going to be so interesting going forward in the next couple of weeks. I'm not going to be able to tell you the entire story here because I want to be able to knit it all together in a nice, clean package for you. But we're going to be talking about election crimes, and I think this is going to be really interesting. So without any further ado, hey guys, how you doing?
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What's happening in Ralph, Karen, and Bill world?
I just got back from Florida, as I'm sure everybody knows now. Had a pretty good event down there. Made quite a few contacts down there, mainly with the local Republican committees.
Really?
My friend that was down there doing an event now has numerous other committees all the way across the state, probably upwards of 20,000 people or so that are interested in getting plugged in and taking action in Florida. So,
well, that's cool. What was the event about?
It was basically going through our constitutional and Christian heritage, which is the majority of what he speaks about.
Oh, that's cool. Who is it? Can you tell us?
That's Bradley Dean from the Sons of Liberty.
Oh, Bradley Dean. Okay. Very cool. Well, good. I'm glad you had a good time down there and that you anytime we learn the Constitution, that's what I felt about being in New Hampshire. We had so many good speakers there. It was totally amazing. A lot of people that were into lawfare, and I really enjoy that a lot because that's kind of a specialized interest that I have. And I think that that's something we all need to get into is learn the Constitution, learn the founding documents, the Federalist Papers, etc., as well as what's going on across the states, because I do think there's a lot of us that are asserting our rights in a legal way, and I think that's going to be interesting. So what subjects do you guys want to talk about today? I mean, we brought up a couple of them just for a few minutes before we got on. Where do we want to go with this? We want to go with the dams. We want to go with maybe that's a good place to start. The power outages in Spain, etc., in Portugal. What do you know about that, Ralph? And let's start there because I've been working with a group in Michigan addressing the DNR theft of our land, and I'm totally disgusted at these people. The entire department right now should be fired because of their usurpations. But that pretty much goes on with every department in our government right now. They're all completely off the rails. What do you know about Spain and Portugal and the power outages, Ralph?
Well, it's kind of a developing story, so there's not most of the news that's been getting out has been getting out through mainstream media, so it's hard. I haven't seen any root cause analysis that I would actually trust yet. I'm sure that will be forthcoming at some point. However, they've had pretty much complete power outages across Spain and Portugal for, I think it's going on about a day and a half now. And what's interesting about it is this is just a few days after Spain announced that they finally achieved their goal of having the electric grid running on 100% renewable energy. So interesting timing that. As soon as they get on renewable energy and drop all of their other power generation down to zero, what happens? And not only Spain, but now it's also Portugal. And granted, you've got a whole bunch of grid interconnectedness over there, but out of anything, I would think that those two countries, particularly with the high voltage cables they've been running across from Africa to tie the grids in that way, that you would think they would be able to jumpstart that, that way and do a black start pretty easy. But, we'll see what happens there. Again, I haven't seen good root cause analysis on it yet, but boots on the ground will, I'm sure, start digging up what the actual story is soon as they get, where the boots on the ground actually have power.
Yeah. And so this goes back to my concern. Let's see. There is a post that Karen made. Rare atmospheric phenomenon behind outage and disruption could last a week, Portuguese operator says. So I don't know how much I believe of anything coming out of any government right now, but it says it claims that the outage is affected. Portugal was caused by a fault in the Spanish electric grid related to rare atmospheric phenomenon. Ren says that it's due to extreme temperature variations in Spain and anomalous oscillations in very high voltage lines. It says that the induced atmospheric variation, which in turn led to oscillations, which caused the synchronization failures between the systems, big words, that led to successive disturbances across the interconnected European network, it adds. It also says that given the complexity of the issue, it could take up to a week for the full network to normalize again. Here's another question that I have on this. So since I'm looking at what the DNR, the theft organization of Michigan right now, which has claimed 4.6 million acres, including all of the mineral rights and the logging rights, and I'm listening to people all over the state as they destroy our dams and such, and they're taking down the coal plants, they're taking down the nuclear plants, everything. They're taking it down. I'm going to go back to the fact that they're trying to starve out Michigan from food supplies as well as the energy grid, because their electric grid is not going to stay stable. It's not. We've got too much of a load on. And where do they think we get electricity from? It's either going to be burning coal, burning petroleum products, or having nuclear to create it. You don't just like wham, get it out of air. And the windmills, the solar panels, that's a joke. That's a total joke if you really look into that. So
and if you want to look at successful nuclear, look to France. They've got an entire industry about doing reprocessing of the nuclear waste that comes out of the plants, so that their actual nuclear waste stream is minimal. And I mean, they're taking a resource out of the ground that's already radioactive, using up a bunch of the radioactivity out of it, and then having a waste stream that comes out of it that is far less of a radioactive hazard than even what came into it, to the point where they're even doing nuclear waste reprocessing for several of the other countries surrounding them over in Europe.
Well, and I think this whole dam removal thing in the state of Michigan, there's some, I was talking to the people last week, Thursday on the show, and they're having people show up that nobody knows who they are to draw down the waters. The DNR doesn't know, Eagle doesn't know, nobody knows. They just show up and they start screwing with the water table. And if they're protecting it, they're going after one of the lakes, has loons on it right now. So I like, these people have absolutely no credibility to me whatsoever. This weekend, I saw an article about them grabbing, capturing geese and gassing them. Another thing, they don't have the right to do this. It's supposed to be protecting them. It's not just to be killing at random like they did, decimating, the north part of Michigan with their wolf drops and cougar drops. And now they're finally having to admit to it. They're all female cougars. That was one of their arguments. Guess what? They've got cubs. So clearly they weren't all female cougars, because last time I checked, that you got to have both, and we're not confused about this male-female thing. Clearly they are.
I don't know. Life finds a way.
Yeah.
But all tyrannical governments, they have to create a problem and then play the problem solver, right? And I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what's behind the things happening over in Spain and Portugal for sure. Besides just what information we can gather across there. But I just ran across one article that immediately started talking about the deaths. They're talking about a family of 3 that had died there and up to 7. And this was reported just this morning. But one of the things that they went to right away was that Spain's Interior Ministry had declared a state of emergency, right? No less than the state of Michigan does or any other state in this union. When you get a mass power outage, all of a sudden the governors think that they can stand up and declare a state of emergency and start directing a lot of unconstitutional agencies to go in there and spend the taxpayers' money on things that the taxpayers should be in control of. But they immediately deployed 30,000 police. Does anybody know how big Spain is? About 195 square miles, 195,000 square miles, if I recall correctly.
Have you looked at the population density maps where how much of it is just completely devoid of people too?
There's quite a bit. But if you take the entire country of Spain, they deployed one police officer, they call them, for every 6.5 square miles, right? And then you take out all the rural areas that Ralph was just talking about in Spain, and that drops it down to somewhere in the line of 1 police officer per every 1.5 square miles. That is a lot of state officials going around under the guise of a declared emergency. And according to what I see about that is that they currently have most of the power back on.
And how many people own guns in Spain?
That I don't know. I don't know what their how far they take their natural rights out there.
Well, and the other thing too is that they've even got an easier synchronization target out there than we do because they run on a 50 hertz grid. So synchronization difficulties in the times of atomic clocks and GPS, Galileo, that sort of thing for doing synchronization. It's in my mind, it's a little bit of a feeble excuse, particularly when you've also got neighboring countries that still have a grid to synchronize with.
Okay, it says, yes, Spain allows firearm ownership, but it has strict regulations. Citizens can own shotguns, rifles, and handguns for sport, shooting, and hunting, but they must obtain a firearms license, which requires passing a background check, psychological evaluation, and demonstrating a legitimate reason. However, carrying firearms for self-defense is generally not allowed except in very limited circumstances. The Spanish government has exclusive control over firearm production, sale, possession, use, with automatic weapons strictly prohibited except for military and elite police forces.
So you can hunt with it, but you can't defend yourself with it.
Yeah, but then they're going to send PETA after you for something else like that and say, no, you can't hunt, you can't fish. That's a no, you know?
Yep. We're not far from that here in America either. I mean, the majority of what you see going on in other countries, especially in European countries, we are borderline close to a lot of that. I, for one, ain't going to have it. That's the reason why I closed my firearms store back in 2023. 23? Might have been last year. 24, I think it was. Because of a lot of the new restrictions that they were putting out. Not necessarily against the people, but they were putting out restrictions against the dealers that infringed further upon the rights of people, right? For instance, the registration of pistols, right? I used to love it because if you're going to buy a firearm from a dealer, they give you a registration slip, you fill it out, everything, they hand it to you, and they tell you got 10 days to turn it into your local sheriff, right? Well, there are thousands upon thousands of people who do not turn that slip in. Understandable, because the state has no business in registering or regulating firearms in the least. That is until 24, when all of a sudden the state of Michigan decided, well, we can't have people turning in their own registrations. Now the dealers are required to turn in the registrations for them. That's when I raised my hand and said, I've had enough. I'm not going to register somebody else's firearm for them. That's
Yeah.
not my duty.
Well, this is the typical thing that the government does. It relies on people being compliant to their unconstitutional laws and mandates, and weaponizes businesses to carry out their unlawful agendas, and people to become their police force. So like when COVID was going on, I'm like, first of all, I'm not going to comply with any of it. Second of all, I'm not going to become the enforcement arm of the government.
Right.
And if they want me to be an enforcement arm, they're going to have to pay me for that extra overreach or that extra burden on the business. But it's still my choice on whether I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to do it. But they're requiring people without payment, without compensation, to actually do their dirty work. The Nazis did it in World War II. Every communist and fascist system has required the people and look at what China's done. China literally has nationalized all businesses. They're all owned by the Chinese government, and that's what's coming here with the public-private partnerships. It's completely but it's like the fascists are the ones sitting with the bankers, Rothschilds, and the that whole group over there, and the communists are the Soros people. So you've got them both working from each end to try to crush us, and they're kind of like collaborating on it, whatever suits their means. And I think it's sort of a organized crime gentleman's agreement going on right now.
Yeah, and that's the problem when you start having public-private private partnerships and public-private trust between government and individual, corporatized systems in the U.S. is you have the establishment of fascism. It's no different than the way you see it played out all the time. The one thing I did enjoy learning about China, though, in China, even though they have heavy control and regulations over all businesses in China, one thing that I appreciate is the Chinese government encourages business growth by actually taking a part in investment in private business. Now, there's a huge danger in that. However, I can see that as a lot of good as well, because if it's a perfect way to eliminate direct taxation on the people as well, right? If you're going to start a business and you don't have the capital to do it all yourself, and you allow the government to take a cut out of your business, obviously they are going to want your business to succeed because they are now going to make a profit on it, right? And percentages, that's a moot point. You can talk about how much they own or whatever, but I see that as a potential usable aspect in all frames of government to not only promote business but to encourage capitalism that way.
How can you, and I'm not being smart about this, but what's the justification for that? And because I'm kind of a purist. Get them out of our lives. Everything that the government touches goes to crap. They never do anything right, because you get people who are low IQ individuals that get in there that could never do it by themselves. Never. So they have to have people that can actually work and create and innovate, because that's not what they do. They're parasites.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to justify it. Moreover, or more or less, I'm just giving an example of a way to eliminate direct taxes to the people themselves. I don't know if it would work as a complete system or not. And like I said, there are some huge dangers in that as well. And that's something that the people would have to keep in check, because once they start regulating internal affairs of businesses, not too far from what they're doing now, but once they start regulating internal businesses for profit, the love of money is the root of all evil. You have that danger in that they would try to reach in and grab more and more and more and more. But there's only one way to stop that, and that's when the people say no. So whether or not, I would even try to implement something like that, I probably wouldn't. I just like the fact that there is an example out there of a different way to fund government and that sort. And ours, we have no constitutional authority to do that, so I'm not promoting it in any means. Ours should be funded, at least federally, just by the tariffs and excises that from imports and such like that.
Speaking of, have you guys ever looked into the InQtel, the company that are I think they consider it a non-profit that the CIA runs as an investment arm?
Yes. Gone through that a lot with Jonathan Cagle and InQtel and some of the other nonsense that's run by our secret societies in behind the pulling the puppet strings. So what would you like to talk about with that?
Oh, well, they were one of the main driving forces behind Google Street View and Google Earth.
Okay, that was one part of it that I didn't know. I've got a mower. Can you hear the mower going outside?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yep.
Okay.
I thought it was just music. It's really soft, like elevator music going on.
So if you look into their connections with Keyhole, which was the company that was the original Google Earth, Google ended up acquiring them, and for a long time, that's why if you use Google Earth, the files are KML, Keyhole Markup Language. That's where that came from, and that was one of the things that was tied in with InQtel, was basically trying to do geographic research,
surveillance.
Yeah, so having imagery on everything on the planet that they could then use for whatever purposes they deemed fit.
Yeah, how fun is that? We were talking last week, Bill, you weren't here for that, but we were talking about the fact that they can literally see right through your house and image where you are, what you're doing in your house, etc. Would you like to explain that, Ralph?
Yeah, so radio waves are basically just light. That's all they are. It's just a low frequency light. And so the idea is that, and this was, the research papers on this were published, I'm going to say back around, I remember seeing it around probably 2005, where they could use Wi-Fi and a set of basically just directional antenna receivers, use the Wi-Fi in your house to then reconstruct a picture of what's in your house, basically an X-ray with the, because X-rays also are basically just light, using the Wi-Fi router as effectively an X-ray light source to see through the walls of your house. And that has only advanced in capability since then, because now we have all kinds of other nice little radio beacons throughout the house that that now also can fire off in sequence, whether it's your Wi-Fi on your phone, sending out Wi-Fi probe requests periodically. I think that's once a minute. So if you've got a whole bunch of phones in your house from different people in your house, then those all become their own light sources. So now you get to the point where you can start reconstructing 3D imagery of what's inside the house.
Triangulation.
Yep, all that kind of stuff. So
Denise said that, can we build more hydro plants in Ludington? Waking up from the Trump rally recovery. That's a long day. That's a really long day. Curtis says, one of the goals of the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals is to inventory everything. We're being taken advantage of. The state government is a profit corporation. Seems a lot like local governments too. The policies infiltrated local governments and zoning. I agree with that.
Hey, the desire to inventory everything, including within private ownership, is nothing new. Look at the old Doomsday Book, which has been incredibly valuable now for doing historical research, but was incredibly invasive to the populace.
Yeah, and that's that's the reason why they add on numerous use taxes to what you would claim as private property as well. right? We talked about that a couple shows ago, even regarding your house, right? Nobody in the state actually owns their house unless they've actually done due diligence and put together the correct land patents and such. But I've even known people that have done that who the government has fraudulently executed documents to illegally still remove them from land patented properties. So, I mean, your vehicles, you pay use tax to register them, right? That's supposed to go back to road work and such, which we know that is not happening either. What was to prevent them from? I use this analogy all the time. If they can tax a private vehicle that you use, a private automobile that you can use on public roads, what's to prevent them from taxing your shoes, your private shoes that you use on public sidewalks? There's no difference, right? One's just larger than the other. So there's nothing preventing them from doing that. And the fact that they need to account for all of their claimed assets just plays right into, well, like Curtis says, it plays right into the UN agendas that have been going on, whether 21 or 23 or 2030 now. It branches out farther than that. The good thing I like about seeing these dates being pushed back, it means that they have not actually been able to accomplish what they want. It wasn't too many years ago, we're at a G7 conference. The man stood up and said, we have everything we need except for, hold on a minute, how do you word that? We almost have everything we need to establish a new world order at that time. And I think that was back in 2007, was the G7 conference I'm talking about. So they've been planning this for so long. Most of the people are just getting caught up on it, right? And when you start digging around the details, it is mind blowing how far and how many things they've put into place. You read some of the information coming out of the Holocaust survivors, right? And they have said the same thing, that they watched all this stuff being put in place in their day, little by little, one little law at a time, but it was never fought back against because it was just a simple little law. And no matter how wicked or evil it may have seemed, the little thing, it wasn't worth rebelling about because it just blow over.
Well, and who cares if it only applies to the trade unionists if you're not a trade unionist, right?
That's right.
It's all about a direct effect from things. I want to read something because you brought up taxes and property taxes. I've been railing against this, and I knew where this was going, the axe my tax thing. And so I want to read to you something I got because I've really been investigating this, and I think this is pretty damning on this whole axe my tax nonsense. And apparently the originator of Axe My Tax and Anthony Hudson had a little falling out this week in some sort. I don't know too much about it, but makes a lot of sense because I've been railing on this. And this is what I got. I've heard BlackRock and State Street has set up Axe My Tax thing or Axe Tax thing, but don't fund it to stay unknown. They find realtors in each state as the organizers. In return, they promise them lucrative buying agent roles after it's passed. Their angle is buying up single-family homes with no tax liability. I said it. I was just so excited to get this in. Right now, a combined 600,000 single-family homes they own puts almost $50 billion in property tax on their books as never-ending yearly debt. They don't get homestead exemption either. So by ending property tax, they can go on a spending spree, buying up every last single-family home without concern or overhead tax. They can hold entire neighborhoods empty to drive up rents and not incur any debt further. From a corporate aspect, BlackRock controls most corporations and commercial real estate as well. So shaves that off the books, and then all the tax revenue that evaporated will be shouldered by the individual human beings to cover. So imagine you save $5,000 a year with no property tax, but pay a combined new tax liability of $20,000 because corporations and landlords pass the buck. I saw it coming when this thing came in. I was pretty excited about talking to this person that really has this thing nailed down. I was surprised though, but it makes sense because of the fact that the realtor and developer connections that are there, it absolutely makes sense. They are going to try to to the bad guys out there are going to try to mislead people by headlines. And if we don't get in behind the scenes and look at what's real instead of what people say because it sounds good and it makes us go, yeah, we don't want any property taxes, it's unconstitutional. Well, it is. But that's not what this is all about. They're using our emotions and what we want to see against us to take us hostage.
Yep. I said that from the start too. Donna, you remember when that first came out. I hope that they succeed in removing it from the Constitution. That's as far as I was willing to take that because it doesn't belong there. Property tax is unlawful. There has been no law in history that has allowed for government to claim ownership of property in this country. Right? They have very, very little ownership of property. And that's just their 10 square miles in D.C., whatever the state legislatures give them for erecting forts, etc. And then the state government just has their buildings, their administrative buildings that they have to maintain, right? Other than that, I'm even opposed to state land. I'm not sure where that started from, but there is no such thing as state-owned land.
Now they're trying to do public private partnerships with 300,000 acres in Michigan. Yep. Wrong direction, guys. This is going to be challenged.
Yeah, and I'm glad Curtis brought up zoning, right? Because all of that plays into there too. Property tax is like right on cue with zoning, right? That is one of the ways that they can regulate that. Let alone that property tax is unequal across the board as it should be, right? People getting tax credits on property. That's a ridiculous notion, in my opinion, especially back in the the 90s when the federal government was giving out tax credits for farmlands. I forget which grant that was or which bill that they were pushing that on, but we've got a lot of property in Kent County alone that still falls under that 20-year plan. They were given tax credits so that they wouldn't develop the property in protecting the farmland. And listen, I serve on a planning commission, right? I just got in here after years and years of fighting for it. I was finally asked to take that position, which I did willingly. But I've come to realize that even the people don't understand that. The people are perfectly comfortable at large in being subject to property tax because they see some greater good in it. And I am not one to believe that. But when it comes down to zoning, right, the state government has no business even being able to zone your property, right? And they do that for the greater good. I understand that, but they use like the whole welfare clause to usurp a power that was never given to them in the first place. Our Constitution lays out no power for zoning private property to the state, county, or even local governments. That was all done by statutory law, and frankly, it is pretended legislation in that regard, right? And this is the stuff that I have to work through in the planning commission, getting these people to understand this and pushing back. We've already been able to stop several things that have come through. Praise God for that. But there's so much more that's being pushed and so much information that comes down the pipeline that you have to decipher through on a daily basis. And here's the way you solve zoning issues, right? People of America, you want to solve the zoning issues. You don't want a big corporate infrastructure built right next to your property. I get it, right? Quit selling it to them. First and foremost, if the people had that mindset, quit selling to these large money-making corporations or quit selling to these developers. Okay, that is the downfall. Whether you zone it or not, the developers almost always win in one way or another, right? That's how little towns get turned into big cities. And if you like the big city, fine, move there.
It's because of greed.
We try to keep our little towns. I, for one, will never sell out my property to somebody who I know is going to develop it or run some sort of corporate entity on it. Right? I will sell to an individual who wants to live and maintain the property and be free to do so because it's their private property outside of the government's control to do so. So that is the way you solve
sell
zoning.
it with a clause that it can't be developed for 99 years or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a way to shut this thing down. So I pulled something up on the zoning companies. Carlisle Wortman Associates works with 75 Michigan communities offering expertise in planning, zoning, and community development. There's another one. You mentioned another one a while back that's out, I think, by Grand Haven. What do you
Fresh
remember?
Coast.
What is it?
Fresh Coast Planning. They do a lot of the stuff in Western Kent County all the way out to the Grand Haven area, north and south. Huge company.
Okay, let's see if we can find it.
But that is, we elect these people on our township boards to handle those kind of affairs, right?
They're working for the developers.
And they delegate that authority out to some zoning administrator for the most part. They delegate that authority out that we told them they have to do. And they let somebody else take care of it. These big corporations that want to follow along, follow straight in with the agenda plans and corporatize all of the land to be owned by local and state governments. I mean, it needs to stop. It just really does. And the only way to stop it is for the people to stand up and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. Right?
Okay. So I looked up of Fresh Coast Planning, based in Grand Haven, established in 2017, specializes in land use planning and zoning services for townships, cities, villages, and private individuals, daily support staff, master planning, site review, recreation planning, communities in securing state and federal financial assistance for parks and recreational projects. That federal money is a poison pill for our communities. Ordinance composition, zoning, power ordinances, etc. Over a dozen communities in West Michigan, including Allendale, Jamestown Township, Sparta, and Mohr, and Allendale, Jamestown, Talmadge, Wright, Chester, Crockery, Robinson, Polkton, Pearson, Casanova, Ravenna, Sullivan, Village of Ravenna, Sparta Township, Tyrone Township, Heath Township, Atiska. What is it? Otiska. I've never heard that one. Township. And let's see who is. I want to see who's behind this. I'm just kind of curious.
Well, and see, that goes back to ceding local control of things to a larger, more authoritative in their mind body. And in that case, they're considering this corporation to be the larger, more experienced, more authoritative body.
Yeah. Let's try Grok. I love Grok.
See, that's one thing that I see too, is that I am of the opinion that a lot of the roads that we have need to be converted back to gravel, because we can't afford to keep maintaining all of the roads in the condition that they should be, which is why we've got disintegrating roads. Part of it, there's a lot of problems there, but if we actually concentrated our funds onto the roads that get the most traffic and or need to be paved, and left some of the other ones as a much easier to maintain in a good usable condition, gravel roads. Some gravel roads can, you drag a grader down a gravel road a couple of times a year to take care of the washboarding, and you can have a gravel road that is better maintained than some of our terribly poorly maintained paved roads right now. And if we were to do that and save all that money on the maintenance of all of the roads, which a gravel road still serves its constitutionally allowable purpose of being maintained as a postal road.
Okay, so the guy that's behind Fresh Coast is Greg Ransford. He has 20 some years in planning, works with all of these, including Lamont. I left Lamont and let's see, Grand Haven, Lamont, Talmadge, There is a close associate. Let's see. He's 6 to 10 employees, 40 years experience. Alice Gulker is noted as a zoning administrator for Talmadge Township, working alongside of Ransford. Byron Township involved in special use approvals such as River Shores hardwood flooring and cabinetry, worked on projects like Captain K9 map amendment application, zoning board of appeals, dispute mitigation services, master planning. There's a bunch of names here too. Marsh Supermarkets in Tipton, worked with them. There's Elizabeth Hoffman Ransford, senior editor at Crow, focused on copywriting and strategy. Assistant professor at Nova Southeastern University, political science, Ransford. Let's see, these are, I'm sorry, these are unassociated names.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at though too with the roads. They need to be under local control so that local can figure out which roads are important, which ones need the funding, which ones can just be maintained as a gravel road and maintained well that way. And you could distribute out the funding burden out to the periphery of things so that it can be managed a lot more intelligently by people on the ground rather than saying, well, all roads just have to be paved.
Yeah, but communists have to own everything and kick us all out. Denise said that Axe My Tax was all over the Trump rally site. I told him to get lost. Power Tyrant said the power outages are intentional. Just listen to the World Economic Forum. They'll tell you openly they intend to depopulate with the useless eaters and reduce the world population down to 100 million people. Convention of the States promoted are the same people that control and manipulate the Michigan RNC, criminals like Michonne Maddock, she says, or however this person spells her name. Curtis is saying 38,000 acres called Allegan State Game was leased in 1938 to a conservatory. It was never returned to the county, but rather was transferred to another agency before the lease expired. Today, the Allegan State Game Area has grown to 55,000 plus acres and is off limits to have human habitation. It was a 50-year lease. Local township road commission was usurped by the county level. Good information, Curtis. So everybody out there, thank you for contributing in the chats. This is great. So I suggest everybody out there start blowing the horn for Axe My Tax, because I'm going to tell you what, this is not what it appears. And the headline is pulling in useful idiots into this. Okay, Bill, did you want to go over this some more?
Yeah, I'll just touch on that a minute. So we briefly touched on the people's duty, right? The people have the absolute right to take care of these problems. And I say that based on the constitutional provision, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 15 and 16, being the people are the militia, the able-bodied men in the community. They are the ones tasked with enforcing the law, right? They're the one tasked with repelling invasion and suppressing insurrection. Well, I ran across this executive order from Trump. This was back, I think the 28th was Monday, if I recall correctly. So it's fairly recent. And there are several red flags in here that I see as huge potential dangers, right? So if we just skim through it real quick, when it starts out, the purpose and policy, right? Well, actually, the very first line, by the authority invested in me as president, right? We're talking executive orders here. They bear no lawful enforcement. They're merely directions to departments under the executive branch. Everybody understands that. If you don't, you need to before you can even continue on. So in Section 1, where he talks about purpose and policy, he says safe communities rely on the backbone and heroism of a tough and well-equipped police force, right? Full stop right there. That line alone made me question this whole thing, because safe communities do not rely on a police force. Police are policy enforcers for local municipalities. They're not elected. They don't serve the people by any stretch of the imagination, right? They do some good in communities, but they have no accountability to the people, right? And we'll get down there, I think, in section 2 when he talks about that. But safe communities rely on the people being knowledgeable enough to uphold their rights and stand up for the rights of those around them. That's how you have a safe community, and you prosecute those who would infringe upon that, right? We'll just say that. We carry on. It says, my administration is steadfastly committed to empowering state and local law enforcement to firmly police dangerous criminal behavior and protect innocent citizens. Once again, whose job is that? The federal government has zero business in directing any amount of state law enforcement, let alone the police themselves. Okay? He says, when local leaders demonize law enforcement and impose legal and political handcuffs that make aggressively enforcing the law impossible, crime thrives and innocent citizens and small businesses owners suffer. I can agree with that, right? You have to deregulate some of this stuff to allow real law enforcement, the people and the county sheriffs, to do their job properly. Once again, not police. And when I read that when the enforcing the law becomes impossible, crime thrives and innocent citizens and small business owners suffer. Can we go back to 2020 and 2021 a minute and see how all of this played out?
Gretchen.
Yeah. Well, not only Gretsch, but even from the federal government as well, right? When Trump was still in power, remember the 2 week shutdown that ended up being several months, right? I was all for it. Shut down the federal government because we found out which ones were essential and which were not. But remember how all that came back online later on, and all those unessential government positions remained. But who suffered there? It was the citizens and businesses that suffered. Thousands and thousands of businesses, right?
And never come back. And magically, they opened the door to all the big box, BlackRock, State Street Capital, Vanguard stores. And we could shop there, but you couldn't buy things like, American flags and paint. And you could be a canoe, but you couldn't have a motorboat except for Gratchy. And oh my gosh.
Yeah. But all of that started from the federal level down. It opened the door wide open for state governors to do what they did. But he goes on to say, my administration will therefore establish best practices at state and local level. Again, the federal government has no business in state and local level. But for cities to unleash high impact local police forces, protect and defend law enforcement officers wrongly accused and abused by state or local officials, and surge resources to officers in need, right? High impact local police forces. Are these the ones who have full bulletproof SWAT teams and SWAT vehicles that terrorize innocent civilians and break down their doors at 3 a.m. for possessing a suppressor?
Like Nate Kane and the Null brothers and the whole 10 yards?
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I read when I read words like this. We want to establish a higher police force to police over the American people, right? With the purpose of getting rid of dangerous criminal behavior and protecting innocent citizens. But again, the police don't have that duty. The police are not a constitutional agency, right? So he says the result will be a law-abiding society in which tenacious law enforcement officers protect the innocent, violations of law are not tolerated, and American communities are safely enjoyed by all of their citizens again.
Does this include pretended legislation and pretended laws?
Here we go.
Because
what I see is they don't enforce the laws they are supposed to, right? That's why I call them policy enforcers when you talk about police. Okay, section 2. This is where it gets fun. The Attorney General shall take all appropriate action to create a mechanism to provide legal resources and indemnification to law enforcement officers who unjustly incur expenses and liabilities for actions taken during the performance of their official duties to enforce the law. Okay? There is some good in that. However, they are not above the law and cannot be protected when they do something wrong. Simple as that. They are to be held accountable just the same as any other person. He said, this mechanism shall include the use of what? private sector pro bono assistance for such law enforcement officers. Right? We just got done talking about the private-public partnership. Now, granted, you would have to admit that the American government as it stands right now is not public sector. It is, in fact, private sector. It's corporatized, right? But it should be public. And the fact that they are using private sector assistance for law enforcement officers at the state and local level, does nobody see a problem with this? I mean, this is a huge thing. This is, for lack of a better term, and we'll expend this in Section 3, but for lack of a better term, it's establishing a more Gestapo system within the states, letting the states do the bidding of the federal government. So let's move down to Section 3. The Attorney General and other appropriate heads of executive departments and agencies, right? A lot of those unconstitutional, remember, shall take all appropriate action to maximize the use of what? Federal resources. Your tax money.
The poison pill.
Yes. To do what? Provide new best practices, because apparently the old law enforcement practices are phony and don't work, right? Because they're not being used. But to provide best practices to state and local law enforcement to aggressively police communities against all crime. I'm cool with that. If you want to aggressively police communities against all crimes, but leave it to the proper jurisdiction, not the police. They will.
I just want to take a moment here and say, while you're reading this, it's kind of strange, but a fictional representation of this is coming to my mind with the Harry Potter series. There is a Professor Umbridge is her name, and she works for the government. She comes in as a professor / teacher, and eventually she takes over the entire school. She has a whole lot of rules, which is like our Michigan code law on the wall. And when students are trying to sneak around and get together and decide whether or not to follow the rules, she selects a group of students who are, not the good kids kind of group of kids. And she gives them a special button to wear, and they become the enforcers within the community of students. And she tortures kids. It just gets worse and worse. Even the young generation has access to what this looks like. And I thank J.K. Rowling for doing that, because she is not woke. She is awake. And she offers a great little kid version of what you're talking about. In the adult world, it's even more scary, but so I could see it in that way as well. But I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I've never seen Harry Potter, but I can see what you were talking about there. Not knowing the extent of the film.
There's pluses and minuses to the whole Harry Potter series, but that particular the movie that is a fantastic example of authoritarianism.
Yes.
And the actress that plays Umbridge, oh my gosh, she makes that just a notorious bad guy character who is a good guy, bad guy character.
Okay. Continue on, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. So
just got our color commentary in there.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I'm here for.
Section 3A2, where we left off. So the Attorney General is supposed to expand access and improve the quality of training available to state and local law enforcement. I know. Let's see. I read this somewhere. Let me see if I can go back here. Maybe it was in our Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 16, where the legislator is supposed to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining who? The militia, the ones charged with law enforcement, right? Let's just bypass that area and leave it to the Attorney General to provide more quality of training to these police enforcers. right?
Does anybody understand that the Attorney General only has jurisdiction over commerce? This is like one of these huge off the rail, to hell with the job description. I'm just going to do whatever I want to do because I'm the Attorney General. And I'm just going to break the law and violate my oath of office and my job description and just go, I'm just going to do this because, I'm just going to threaten people that come against me. I'm going to tell them that we're going to threaten, we're going to coerce them into shutting up and being silent.
Yeah, but if you can tie everything into the Interstate Commerce Clause, then it all makes sense.
Well, let's look at this further. Look at some of the big cities in America, right? Let's look at Chicago, LA, New York, the ones with the largest police presence, right? I don't know if anybody's actually driven around Manhattan. I used to drive a semi-truck and had to go deliver in Manhattan, right?
I have been there a couple of times.
If you would like a challenge in life, jump in a semi-truck with a sleeper and a 53-foot trailer and go drive downtown Manhattan delivering furniture, right? You'll love it. Absolutely. Do it on Christmas Eve while you're at it. But nonetheless, you will see police on almost every other corner in Manhattan. And that was back years ago. They might have one on every corner now. But is it more safe and is there less crime in those areas?
Nobody lives there anymore. They don't even live in Manhattan, and it stinks.
Well, when you look at like Chicago, right? You pull up Chicago news, you'll find out there's a shooting in Chicago. Somebody dies almost every weekend because the laws are not being enforced. Yet they have one of the largest police presence out there, right? And part of it is because they're being strangled by local governments. I understand that. But increasing the police enforcement is not the answer to the problems here. And Donna, you're a businesswoman. Check this out. Go to number 3 there, section 3A3. What else does the Attorney General want to do? Increase pay and benefits for law enforcement officers, right? Now tell me, how does it work when you have an employee that doesn't do their job correctly, but you think by increasing their pay and benefits, we can get more accomplished through them?
Yeah, that doesn't work well. Just saying.
That doesn't work at all.
No, a bad employee is taking advantage of the system, and they will always take advantage of the system. They're not going to change their behavior for more money. They're just going to go, I need more. I need more. I need more. As soon as somebody does that to me, I generally let them go because I understand this game. I've seen it enough times and I don't play it.
Yeah. So not only are we going to give them more for not doing their job properly beforehand, but we're going to strengthen and expand legal protections for law enforcement officers and seek enhanced sentences for crimes against law enforcement officers, right? A lot of those are people who are defending their rights against a tyrannical police force. I get it. I am not a back the blue guy, right? I will not stand behind a group of individuals as a whole. I will stand behind the individual themselves. There are a lot of good police officers, right? As unconstitutional as they are, there are a lot of good ones that seek to do right for the people. But there are a ton.
Okay, I got to go back to this increased pay to encourage performance there. That's kind of like if you got bad employees and you don't deal with it, it's like an Enron scandal or somebody else where you're paying these executives big dollars to carry out the globalist agenda. When you're paying bad employees extra, more money to try to get performance out of them, they're just breaking the coffers of the state. You have to deal with that performance. You don't just say, I'm going to pay more because I feel sorry for them or they carried out an agenda. No, that is completely avoiding dealing with a problem or utilizing them for a bad agenda.
Yep. I wanted to bring up too, to Bill's point earlier about the shootings in Chicago. That's just not possible. That's a gun-free zone.
Yeah, how's that working for them?
Yeah,
that's a good point, Ralph.
But let's carry this out a little further in thought here. Not only that, but we're going to promote investment in security and capacity of prisons. Right? Can anybody tell me why we have prisons? It should not be for the official punishment of crimes, right? That's one thing that I agree with the Constitution Party on, is that it should be restitution for crimes, right? Proper judgment, not a prison sentence where they're given 3 hots and a cot paid for out of your pocket, right? I don't want to keep murder. Yeah, I don't want to keep murderers alive, for instance, right? There is proper judgment and proper laws that should be taken care of. Prisons are only the temporary dwelling place before you should have a swift and speedy trial, which we can go over that one too. That's a whole nother hour show, right? Just talking
It'd be
about
like
that.
a 6-hour show on the
Yeah.
unconstitutionality of a lot of the stuff going on around us. We should do that because people don't even know. They don't even know the basics.
Right. But remember in Nazi Germany when they were expanding not necessarily prisons, but expanding camps to hold people who are charged with crimes, right? Pretended crimes, nonetheless. We remember a lot of the concentration camps, for instance, right? They expanded the security and capacity of their prisons as well, right? Huge red flag to me. Why don't we prosecute crimes properly? You wouldn't need half of the prison, probably 90% of the prison systems that we have. And they wouldn't be
privatized.
they wouldn't be making $63 billion a year off the backs of the American people in unrighteous judgment against those who are promoting the crime and causing the crime.
And keeping their quotas up. I mean, they won't even let people go that should be lawfully exited from the prison system because it's a quota they deal with. It's wrong. Everything about it's wrong.
January 6th.
Yeah, January 6th.
Really, the proper use of a prison is for imprisoning people for the failure to pay their debts. Correct?
Oh gosh, no. Wrong.
Prison? Yeah, right.
Okay, we know that you're just messing with us.
If you're going to keep them there, they might as well be working and making money so they can pay off their restitution that they properly owe when they commit a crime against an individual or their property.
Hey, we've got one sheriff, because I talked to probably a third to half of the sheriffs in the state when I was running for governor in 22. And one of them has got a great thing. They all work. They have gardens and they work to put up their own food. And he makes them double wash it, put the food up, and whatever they have left, they can share with their families and communities, which I think is a great idea. I really do. I'm like, this is great. Make the farm bigger. You know, they can learn some usable skills rather than criminal behavior as their only income.
Yeah. Well, let's look at 7 there. Right? They're going to increase the investment in collection, distribution, and uniformity of crime data across jurisdictions.
Okay.
Does anybody see a problem with that? The federal government creating or holding more data from the states, crime data, and being able to utilize that across jurisdictions.
Okay, so I got to have Ralph jump in here because we had a crazy discussion about another form of surveillance that is going to just absolutely shock everybody. This is a new one, guys. I'm not taking responsibility for this one. But Ralph, why don't you want to tell everybody what they're doing in our sewers?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So I don't know how many people know about this, but there have been a whole bunch of programs to deploy sensors in the sewer systems to monitor various chemical substances going through the sewers. Generally, it is portrayed as something where they are monitoring for the metabolites in the waste stream of illegal narcotics.
They're checking out your poop is what this comes down to. I'm going to make this clear and simple.
Yeah.
And totally deranged and very disturbing.
That's how they portray it. However, if you look at some of the way that they do this, in a lot of cases, it's not just, oh, we want to check the drug use of a community. No, they check all of the branch pipes so that they can actually, in some cases, narrow down the location of whatever substance they're looking for, whether that's drug residues or, perhaps DNA or something like that. In some cases, they can narrow that down as far as within 4 houses of where it came from.
So to call them shitbirds, it sounds like it's kind of like applicable here. These people are so horrible. I can't even believe that this is going on in the United States. That's why they want us all hooked up to their sewers too, so that there's more surveillance, there's more money to be made off of that. They're giving their kickbacks to the contractors. It's just another way to take away our rights and our freedoms on our properties.
Yeah, it's eliminating the independence of the American people,
Yes.
the self-governing ability of the American people.
Okay,
Yeah, the
I've
amount
got
of
my
surveillance is
next guests
incredible.
are sitting there waiting for a minute. So let's go ahead and I'm going to finish this up, and then we're going to go to the election investigation for crimes, because it's happening and there's going to be stuff coming out, which I personally know about, which is going to be awesome. But there's timing and everything.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's look at the conjunction of unconstitutional agencies here. In Section 4, the Attorney General and the Secretary of Defense, in consultation with who? The
Homeland.
Secretary of Homeland Security, or the Secretary of Homeland Security, right?
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong here, right? And not only that, move down to you skip a lot of some of this. Move down to Section 6 here. The Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security shall utilize the Homeland Security Task Force, aka American Gestapo, formed in accordance with Executive Order 14159 of this year, to coordinate and advance the objectives of this order. Right? It is no longer just the federal government trying to fund local law enforcement, policy enforcers, to further do their jobs incorrectly, might I add. But it's Homeland Security, right, which was created back during the Patriot Act, the Unpatriot Act, right, that is still being promoted by a lot of conservatives. But it's Homeland Security that is going to be overseeing all of your state policy enforcers. What could possibly go wrong here?
Yep. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be positive about this and say perhaps they're throwing this out there to educate the American people, which it's not happening fast enough, because people are going to sources that are giving them fireflies to chase out there all the time. You know, let's see how many claws does an alien have on their third hand or something stupid like that. You know, it's like, instead of studying the law, we're getting distracted, and this is what needs to happen. But I'm hoping like crazy that all the bad appointments that I'm seeing again is to throw things out there and hopefully draw other people into the sting or the trap. That's what I'm hoping is happening right now. But it doesn't mean that we go into Stupidville and ignore all this stuff, because this is a problem.
Yep. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of hope in that. It would be cool to see, but in the meantime, I see a lot of violations of the Constitution happening over and over and over. And this is just way, way too similar to the way that Hitler started the Third Reich in Germany and started attacking the American people by his own Gestapo. Right? This is a huge problem. I don't want to see this branched out against my own kinsmen. And there are a couple of states who are rejecting this, especially being with Kristi Noem as the head of the Homeland Security, and further pushing this real ID, the federal registry of individuals, right? There's big problems here. And if the people don't get this one right and correct it, I see a huge fall coming out if the federal government takes over our right to law enforcement in the states.
Well, you better hope that somebody gets a good governor in place, because if you don't, that's really one of the only offices that can easily deal with this through nullification. Or the people have got to get involved, and I mean at a boss level state here, and say, this is enough of this. The states need to be handled like their own individual countries, not like wards of the federal government. The Michigan stands alone. A good governor would kick everybody out and say, you come across that border, we will arrest you. Any federal agencies do not have the right to be in here. And if you come across that border, we're going to treat you as an invading army. Get out.
Yep. Need to go tell the government to go fly a kite somewhere else, by the way, not using our air to do it.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so I've got my other guests there. It's 10 minutes after 10. Last words, Bill, Ralph, and Karen.
Well, we need to get on the ball here. Everybody needs to take part in this. This is not time to fall asleep. Just like the parable that Christ told his disciples, while they slept, that's the keepers of the vineyard, while they slept, the enemy sowed tares, right? As long as the American people are just going to lay back and say, oh, we can just watch this play out, we don't need to do anything about it. As long as you're going to sit there and do that, the enemies will still come and sow tares right in behind you, and you won't see it coming until it knocks on your front door.
Ralph.
Bill brought up the real ID stuff. I'd recommend everybody look into that. And Michigan still has the option to have an ID that is not real ID compliant.
You can opt out of that too if you've already opted in. You can opt out. I learned that this weekend from an attorney that was at the National Constitution Committee, which was kind of interesting. And if you need to use ID, you can also use your driver's license, or not driver's license. You can use your passport. Karen.
Well, I think it's really easy for people to get stalled out in the fog of confusion. And as Bill said, this is the time to not be asleep. I was thinking kind of along the same lines, because you can go, well, I don't know who is good. I can't tell what is actually happening. I don't know if Trump is trying to trick us with something or trick somebody else. There's a lot of complicated aspects of this war game going on. And sometimes you just get so frustrated and confused that you're just wanting to sit still and just watch. But you don't have to just sit still. At the very least, share what you learned. I was talking to Donna this morning about what I posted last night. There are people who don't know what we know. They missed it when it first became news to us even a few years ago. And sometimes things are coming around in the cycle of news or in conversation that in this particular case, it was about the clots produced by the shot. And I spoke to somebody who had never heard of that concept before, and I had to introduce it to them. It's like old news to me, but don't discriminate against people who are hearing old news for the first time. Let them hear it. Share that. Share what you learn, because that is powerful. And when you share about things like we've been talking today, like Bill said about the Constitution and understanding what your rights are, you can disagree, even if you suspect that Trump is actually trying to trick some bad guys with doing something like that is going on. It's still okay to disagree out loud, even if it sounds like maybe that's just a step in the right direction. Disagree if it's still wrong.
Yep. Well, and I appreciate everybody's input here. You guys are great friends, and I love you all very much. And remember, if you're going to break some news like that to people, be kind about it, because they don't know. All of us have woken up at different times to how bad it actually is. If we still have farther to go in waking up, the amount of federal monies that are in our states, all of our townships and municipalities and counties, they're broke. They're all broke. They cannot even exist without federal dollars in there. If they pulled the federal dollars because we bit the poison apple, we've taken the poison pill, if that got pulled immediately, they're completely broke. And we would have to start over again, which isn't a bad thing. It has to happen. But people are going to have to realize that when this thing goes down, and we're all going to feel it together, and we're going to have to come together and work with people that we thought were maybe on the other side, when it turns out we're probably all been a victim of their division that they've created between us. And so don't automatically assume that someone, that just because they had some sort of whatever it was that they affiliated with, they may be just as lost and brainwashed as the people that are on our own side or such. So we're going to have to be kind about it and realize that it's a process. Thanks for being on, guys, and love you all to pieces. I'm going to go to a real quick break, and I will bring on Shelly and Stephanie. Good morning. Welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 30th day of April 2025, last day of the month. And welcome to our show. Today, we're going to be looking into election investigation and crimes that are being committed, because there have been crimes committed. And I absolutely believe that we have to chase this down. We can't turn a blind eye, because they're still doing it. They're still doing it. They're still hiding stuff. They're still obstructing investigation. There's all this stuff going on. And I'm going to be bringing on Stephanie and Shelly Lake, and we're going to be talking about this. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi there. Doing great.
Awesome. I
Good
can't
morning.
hear you, Stephanie. Oh, there you are. Now you're on. See if
Good
there's-
morning.
Yeah, see if there's a lag there. Stephanie, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing wonderful. It's a nice sunny day. It's a little cold here in Michigan, but good days coming ahead.
Well, you guys look beautiful today, and this is it's an amazing time to be alive. And I'm going to tell you, I am so honored to stand with you guys and the people that have done the work in Locus Standi, as well as Election Integrity Force, and I'm gonna tell you what amazing work that's been done here. Michigan Fair Elections, you guys are doing so much work, and most people don't even know what's going on behind the scenes, which is kind of sad. So here you go, guys. Here's a couple more people that are heroes in my book. So what are we going to be talking about today?
The individual voter histories that are held by your jurisdictional clerk and the BOE, Board of
Bureau of Elections.
Bureau of Elections. Yep.
Oh, our favorite people on the planet here. So do you have a presentation to share today, Stephanie?
Well, we do. I don't know how to share it on here, but we
Don't
did
I-
send it to you.
Okay, I can do that either way. So if you send it, just give me a minute, and or if you want to share it, there's a button on the bottom that says present. Can you do that, or you want me to go to the email?
I would rather you do it if possible.
Okay. Well, go ahead and talk amongst yourselves for just a minute, and I'll
Okay.
bring it up.
And Donna, I did send it to both of your emails
Okay,
just a little while ago.
got it. I got it.
So, but to start this is the Locus Standi, and Scott Ogney started this investigation really, and is kind of the leader of the crew of troublemakers. So kudos to Scott and to everyone involved, because we have all done work in our counties. I have 19 people here in Berry County that were brave enough to join the investigation. So we looked into their voter history. Stephanie, I think you have 40. What county are you in?
Isabella County, we have 40 cases of, we've been calling it record malfeasance.
Right. And what we did to start it with, we FOIA'd an individual's voter change history and their voting history. And we FOIA'd it from their local clerk. And then we also FOIA'd it separately from the Bureau of Elections. So we are comparing data between those two entities and showing how the histories and the voting records are being tampered with.
That's awesome. And I just got to give a shout out to Scott Ogney, because I just love Scott. I think Scott is just a super guy. He's a straight shooter, and he literally will go to the jugular on these problems, and he doesn't back down. I love Scott. So kudos to you, Scott. You've done a really good job, and as well as you ladies. So where are we going to go from this? Do you want me to just go down the PowerPoint here?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah, in the beginning, he kind of tells what is the investigation, what the steps we took, basically the goals of it. Those are the first few slides. And on page 3, he's right, where it has impact of the crimes. He's right, the clerks are not aware that this is going on. Most of them honestly don't believe it yet, but we'll work
and the
on it.
voters too. The voters don't know this is going on because who is FOIA-ing all these documents and comparing them? I mean, it's unheard of. Nobody even knows all these documents exist.
I gotta ask a question on this with the NDAs that allegedly a lot of people signed. Is it a crime to sign an NDA if a crime has been committed, or is it a crime to sign an NDA after a crime is being committed? This is something that I think that people should really consider who have done NDAs in the state, because signing an NDA to protect criminal information may really hang them up at some point in time. I'm just going to put it out there as something to consider. And I would like to encourage all the whistleblowers to come forward and say something, because we have to. You cannot justify it by an NDA. Sorry, it's not going to hold up. But anyhow, go ahead.
Well, and I will tell you, clerks are scared. The memos that come out from the Bureau, from Jonathan Brader and Lori Bourbonnais.
Screw Jonathan Brader. Somebody needs to say it. Screw that guy. He doesn't tell us to break the law and or any of these yahoos up there. You know?
Yeah, but what we have seen is them go after. Look at Stephanie Scott. She was removed from her duties and then basically removed as clerk of Adams Township, and is still in court, her and Stephanie Lambert, for doing the right thing. The memos specifically say at the bottom, if you release this data, you could be subject to, prosecution, investigation. So, clerks are like, I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do because I don't want to get in trouble, screw the law kind of thing. If they know, but it is intimidation at a minimum.
Well, it's institutional. I mean, look at what Benson did. Benson threatened, of course, the entire state of Michigan. Don't come out and say anything against us, or we'll come after you. I mean, that was blatant in your face. I mean, it's institutional coercion and threat from the Secretary of State's office and the Bureau of Elections. So, I digress. I'm a little annoyed by this whole thing. So.
That's okay. That's okay. And it is impossible to, or would be impossible to audit these elections, because they are deleting, but I'm getting ahead of it. And Stephanie knows this investigation too, inside and out, and has worked tirelessly. It's important. The Locus investigation is so crucial. We need to get it in front of somebody who will listen to it. It's been presented to sheriffs. They poo-poo it and say that you've got nothing. So
I do believe we have 15 counties where this has been presented to 30 different law enforcement and prosecutors, and nobody's taking it up. And I do know we are going to be presenting to the election committee, the state election committee, and hopefully we can get it above and beyond the state level, because I think that's our only hope.
Yeah. So if you go to the key terms, Donna, the page with key terms.
Okay. So
that people understand what we're talking about when we say EPB or QVF, they can understand, when you check in to vote, that is the electronic poll book, and that, records who voted and when. And the QVF is simply the jurisdiction's list of registered voters. So, those terms, and then it does talk about, the change history report, and the voter history shows when you voted. And that change history report is huge because there is a source column and tells who made those changes in the QVF. And recently we clerks got, I guess it's not been recent, Stephanie has it, but we got memo saying that we're no longer allowed to show the source column because it protects the person who made the changes, that is now obviously hidden to clerks. I mean, they can see it, they just can't print it to give it to the voter like they used to be able to.
Which is why is this all being hidden? Because they're trying to protect the people that allegedly are breaking the law.
Yeah.
Why, if they were doing things right, why wouldn't they want this all out there? Why is it all behind some sort of a paywall constantly?
Right.
And so we've been analyzing essentially 3 different documents. One comes from that jurisdictional clerk that has your voter ID, the time you registered, your jurisdiction that you're registered in, and timestamps of your voting times and dates. And then the other record we look at is called a move change history. So anytime someone moves and I believe changes their name, that shows up in that move change history. And I do believe that is sourced from driver's licenses. So anytime someone goes in and moves and they have a new driver's license address, then that shows up from that report, which is through the Secretary of State. And I do believe it also goes through the post office. I think they reconcile those. And then the other document is from the Bureau of Elections that has the same data, supposedly, of that voter's history, which should have similar things, like your voter ID number, your time of or your date of registration, your voting jurisdiction, your timestamp. And we are noticing that everybody's record, there isn't one person that we have researched that has a record that shows the same data on all 3 documents.
Oh, really?
Right.
There's not a person out there.
Yep. So the next slide, actually, we're going to be looking at our friend Scott Ogney's record. Yeah. So that kind of starts the one, that's who we're looking at. The next slide is an MCL 750.248. And the law that all records cannot be altered, changed, deleted, things like that. The next one is the beginning of Jackson County Scott's records.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, no, that next one is, I'm sorry, all of the jurisdictions within Jackson County, and he highlighted the ones that come into play for his voting record in particular. And again, Stephanie has 40, I have 19 in Barry. The same presentation with our voters. So Stephanie, you can go ahead.
Oh, I'm just trying to see this. This is on my phone, so it's very small. It looks like this is the voter history. This is the clerk's QVF, showing the different jurisdictions that this voter has voted in, which appears to me there's 3. Yep.
So this is Scott's voting record. The user code is the person who, when he checked in to vote, so it's usually a name and then and those numbers they identify which township, which jurisdiction. So like my Irving Township has a 41120. So that's what those numbers are.
Okay.
Let's see. This is also the clerk's from the clerk's record. I'm sorry, Stephanie, you can't see it very well.
Okay. I can see enough. So again, it's just highlighting that there's 3 different jurisdictions. You can see the date, the election, and the different jurisdiction in the user code, you can see the different clerks.
Yep.
Okay. Now this is the Leone Township, individual history sorted by election.
Yeah. And pay attention to, so his voter ID on the left-hand column, registration date, which should never change. You register once, that should never change, and all voting history should be after that date, right? Because you've got to be registered to vote. And then that date and timestamp.
Well,
Oh,
I'm gonna clarify that. So every
Yes.
time you register, every time you move, you have to re-register. So that would set the date for that voting jurisdiction of when you are eligible to vote in that space.
and that's right, but it's not really a re-register. It should maintain your original registration date, if that makes sense.
It should be listed there. I think it'll
Yeah.
make more sense as we move along.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, show us what's wrong here that we wouldn't maybe pick up on or know. You're gonna have to call it out for us.
Sure. Well, you can see here that it has him listed as voting in all of these different elections in the same jurisdiction, which he had 3, as in the report before, 3 different jurisdictions in this time frame that he has voted in. And this is by the Bureau of Elections. So this is their document. This is their data.
So something is wrong because the other jurisdiction should be showing up in here. Am I correct?
Correct.
So why is this dropped off and who changed it is the question. And why isn't this consistent?
Right. And you can see the data source here towards the top on the left, Michigan Bureau of Elections. What happened to the timestamp? He didn't vote at midnight. I think 0 would be midnight, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they've
Yeah.
all been manipulated. So it's not just one election, it's all of them.
So somebody had to change that record because there's missing information in this report. That's the point, right?
And we're finding that for every single individual, that they have no timestamp on the Bureau of Election report.
We had that on mine. I pulled mine for Scott and to take a look at. And that was exactly one of the things that was missing was the date and timestamp. It was all set to 0000. So something's wrong here, guys. There's something deeply wrong.
Well, it's because this then becomes hard to audit. We don't know if ballots are being cast at 3 a.m. when everybody's gone. We don't know when these transactions are happening. And this is the certified document. This is the certified data of the elections that the Bureau of Elections and the Secretary of State is supposed to hold for 5 years.
So this is the big problem in this is that they're impairing because they either haven't kept good records or we don't know if it's malicious. We don't know if it's just incompetence, but we sure as heck can see that it's probably maladministration because they've impaired our ability to audit.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So if you pick one of his voting, okay, look at his August. Oh, I don't know. Do you want to pick August of?
Back one?
Yeah. So it's August of 2009. Go back one more.
Let's see. Okay, here you go.
It might be one more. Let's see. It would be the township clerk. There, that one.
Okay.
So let's, for instance, look at the bottom record, August 4th of 2009.
Okay.
And this is from the clerks. We forward the clerks, so that's theirs. But then if you move forward to the one that's from the Bureau of Elections and look at that same
Date.
Yep, that same date.
One more. There you go.
So look for the August of 2009.
Okay.
It has him voting in Leone.
Oh, so they
Right.
don't even have him in the right place there. So nothing is matching whatsoever. Why
Right.
are they not answering to these questions? I mean, if somebody worked at a bank and made this kind of an error, there'd be hell to pay.
Well, they say that they had some sort of system change or system update. But if that's the case, why is that move change history accurate? Why can't that be? Why do they have that data correct, but not this record that is the official record?
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
and-
So I was
Yeah.
just going to say what's happening. So one of my voters moved from one township to another. So from the time she moved to her new township, her records, all past voting history will show her new township. She completely loses her old township records. It switches over to her new one. The other thing is, unfortunately, the clerk's copy, the voter ID. So if you see on the one that they got from the state, his is the 3326. Not one of the voter IDs will match between Secretary of State and Bureau of Elections. Not one.
How can this be?
And what are they using the other voter ID numbers for?
So there's multiple ID numbers for one voter. Okay, like I'm going to ask questions and maybe you could help me to ask the right questions. Are they keeping a separate set of books?
That's what it appears. We have found, I don't
that is
remember
right.
what county it was, but we have found a voter that had 10 voter IDs associated with their person.
Yep.
Well, it sure sounds like I mean, if you were auditing this, the first question I would have is, are they keeping a second set of books or a parallel system?
Yeah, 2 QVF files. And I don't really know because it's way above my pay grade, but it's possible. Why don't any of the voter IDs match? And when, say you take the Secretary of State's record and that voter ID and you search for it, it didn't show up in the clerk's portal. So when I looked them up, so I don't know the explanation. And what's interesting is in Scott's on page 9, it shows that user code. And this was the first time that we FOIA'd it. It came with the user code. And later we'll show you where when you FOIA it now, it does not give you the user code column.
That whole right column is gone.
Wow. So
Yeah, and they said,
you can't audit it and find out who is in there. Shouldn't you have somebody be able to see who touched this at every step of the way so that you know where there's, I mean, am I asking the right questions here? Since
yes,
this is not my expertise, but
that's his record. So my voting record, I should be able to see who has made changes to my record. That's mine. But when you go into your clerk now and ask for it, that column, they can see it on their screen. But I have since found a way to print it. But when they print it, like they used to be able to, that doesn't show up. And what the instructions were from the Bureau was that's to protect, the safety of the users.
well, that's a bunch of crap because you've got all of the voter stuff out there.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't get it, you know?
So, and I will tell you, there was, in our township, there were, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 that showed up in the QVF, and the user code was Eric EBU. And so our clerk emailed, the Bureau and said, who is Eric EBU? Why is Eric dumping names into our QVF? They emailed back some bullshit response, some reasoning, but now when I go look those same people up, that source code no longer says Eric EBU. It's different.
Do you have that documented?
Oh, yes.
That's probably a really good thing, because why are they changing this at all? Shouldn't a record be a record that doesn't change? I mean, is that another appropriate question to ask?
Yeah, history shouldn't change.
Absolutely not. I know that Chris Kyla did he's been on my show several times, and you can see where the when they added a whole bunch of people right before elections and then they drop it off. How I don't understand this changing of records or changing of people. How many errors do you think are actually in the system, if you could estimate it? Because
every voter that's voted.
Every single voter that's voted. How many duplicates do we have in the system with duplicate IDs?
That's hard to say. I wouldn't even take a guess at that. I know Michigan Fair Election, their data team and several volunteers are helping. I know I get letters at my township hall, which is wonderful, from their volunteers saying we noticed there's a couple duplicates. And clerks should really be thankful for that, because they are so busy, and it's helpful to have that. Donna, I've sent you a couple, last night I sent you a couple emails. I've got a voter who her voter history includes 4 different names in the comments. She was merged with 2 different men. She was merged with a completely different female, 3 different voter ID numbers. I don't get it. I just had a name change come through, and I looked at her history, she has 3 different voter IDs. So I did email the Bureau help desk, but I haven't heard back.
Wow.
But anyway,
I'm going to go to a comment. Sherry's Cleaning says, Donna, you're a joke. I would never vote for you. Well, that's okay. You don't know how to spell your in this use case. You said Y-O-U-R instead of Y-O-U''RE. And I uphold your ability to make choices, even if you can't spell. So go ahead.
That's okay. I don't know what page we are on, but
we're on page 11. So individual history, sort by election.
Okay. So does that make sense, where it shows the date, time, the dates there, but the timestamps have disappeared? And for him, his jurisdiction name was changed. He didn't live in Leona Township during those elections.
I'd like to make a point here for people to understand that our clerks have it right. We should give them tons of credit, because they do try to keep a very accurate election, at least most that I have come across. They're very honest. They want to do right. But their documents are all told to be destroyed after the election. So we can't even FOIA the electronic poll book after an election anymore. They have been told that we cannot have that data. The only data we can have now is from the Bureau of Elections.
Wow. So they're the gatekeepers to everything, and they can go in and change things, which they've clearly, it's shown that they, within their custody, they have changed information, and that was within their custody. So it shows that they're absolutely the ones that are doing this.
And that clerk's record is the first record in chain of custody before that's tabulated, that vote. Even if you absentee vote and you mail your vote back to your clerk, that clerk has to enter that in as a line item stating that your ballot has come in, and it should have a timestamp, and it should have the method of which you voted, if you voted in person or absentee, and I guess now early voting. And that is all creating a document in your voter history. And all of those are accurate. Those clerks are putting that information in correctly. But somehow, when that data is transferred to the state, somehow it is being tampered.
Well, let me just say one thing. So early voting during those 9 days, or however many other townships use, those are hooked up to the QVF Live. So they are, it is an internet based. So when a voter checks in, it goes directly to the QVF versus a flash drive. So on election day, that electronic poll book is offline, and you have a flash drive that's encrypted. And so everyone who votes on election day ends up on this flash drive, and that's called the EPB. Clerks call it their EPB stick or whatever. And per retention laws, that information is supposed to be retained for 22 months. And that is the data. So it would be the election day electronic poll book. They are being told to delete that 7 days after the final canvas, in the audit. So I can't remember the date we got ours, but it's a felony to delete that data, but they are. So when you FOIA it, I had 2 clerks legally and properly give me that data, properly redacted. The rest of them said, no, look, we're told not to. I do have a lawsuit. I sued our city here in Hastings for not giving me that data. And I lost here locally, which was she really didn't do a very good job, but it's in the Court of Appeals right now. So that data is supposed to be retained, and they're deleting it. Tell me why. Why are they being told? Why don't they want people to have that data?
Well, and they're committing a felony.
Yep.
They're committing a felony. A felony is, I mean, there's the question right there. If they're breaking the law, we have to hold them accountable. And we've got all the proof, and nobody's looking at it. And here's your question: why isn't this being prosecuted at the sheriff's level?
Well, in my county, we had it at the prosecutor's office. And he called Lori Bourbonnais to ask her questions about it. And Lori Bourbonnais, of course, said, I don't have the bloody knife. It isn't us. This is why it's like this. And he was convinced and happy with that, and then never did a thorough investigation. We had a clerk, her board in her township wanted her to store away in a locked safe at the township her electronic poll book so it could be investigated, because we've also found networking data error reports on the end of these electronic poll books throughout the election day. That poll book has software that is being downloaded on there that is trying to send a report somewhere, and it's called voter details, and it's being sent out throughout the whole day of election day. And I'm assuming that was because somebody wanted to know who's already been in to vote, what voter ID numbers have been used in that jurisdiction that could be used for mailers.
Yeah, and you know what? Just me personally, yeah, we see pings where, every 15 minutes or so, you can see sometimes in the EPB that either something has tried to go in or go out. I am not accusing them of doing anything. Just let's make it straight here for me. Just something is happening to the records between the state level that we get and the clerk level that we get. And I will say I did file a complaint against one of our clerks, and it did go to the prosecutor and then to the AG. So it's in the works, and we'll see what happens. But anyway, we should.
So are you going after are you going after criminal complaints then on these people for the felonies? Is that how you're approaching this?
The one I did. The rest of them, I'm really trying to, because these clerks, I'm really trying to get them to understand there's a difference between a law, a retention law, and FOIA on what can and can't be released. I do, and then versus a directive given by the Bureau of Elections. One's a law, one is just a directive that does not trump a law. So I'm really trying to work with the clerks to help them understand the law and get them to do the right thing. So I have not proceeded with any other criminal complaints but the one.
Who gave the directive to destroy the poll book or the information at the local level?
That, I believe, comes from the Bureau of Elections.
And
Right.
whose name was attached to those? Do you know whose name was attached to those letters?
Lori
memos?
Bourbonnais.
Lori Bourbonnais and Jonathan Brader. Yep.
So they're both on that directive telling people to break the law.
Yes.
Right.
Have I got this right?
Yep. And it goes out quite often, actually. We've got a lot of them, these memos from them. So yeah, both of them.
Wow. So this could be kind of something fun to look into, considering that I think we've got more power as individuals than what we think that we do. And I think we need to hold them accountable. I mean, certainly if they are telling people to break the law and then people are actually listening to what they're telling them to do, we've got a whole big problem here. I'd like to encourage any whistleblower out there to come forward and give me a call. Y'all know what my phone number is, so give me a call. And I think
we need one brave clerk to file a lawsuit against the Bureau saying you are giving me unlawful instructions.
Do you think there will really be any punishment or penalty at the state level? I think this has to get out of the state for there to be anything that will be beneficial to the voters here in Michigan.
Right. Well, nothing will happen at the state.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think we've got some other recourse, and I think we need to continue going forward with said activities and that, because I think it's possible. It's a way that I'm exploring right now. But do you want to go on further and show what else is in this report?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's 12. And here we go. Electronic poll book raw data. What are we looking at here, ladies?
This is the poll book, essentially, of who came in during election day with the voter ID, the timestamp, and the election. I believe the jurisdiction is on there too.
Okay. So this has the timestamp.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, this is showing from the Bureau of Elections. Nope, this is the CSV raw data file. This is just showing Scott Otney's record and with his voter ID number, the date and time stamp.
So they had it at one point in time.
Well, the clerks all have it.
Okay.
Yeah, they've not lost the timestamp, but if you see on page 14, the voter ID does not match, and he listed both there. So one is from the local clerk and one is from the BOE report. Completely different voter ID numbers. And the HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, says there shall be only one individual unique identification number per voter.
And we're seeing multiples.
Oh, daily. I see them daily, yes.
Okay. And what are we seeing here?
The list of voters. So when the Bureau tells the clerks, hey, if they want this EPB data, tell them to go to the county clerk, FOIA the county clerk, and get the list of voters. This is what you would receive, the list of voters. It's not the same data as what's in the electronic poll book. It's simply what number voter they were, what ballot number they got, and then any remarks. It's completely different information than what we would want when we FOIA the EPB. So giving them the direction that we can get the same data from the county clerk is pretty wrong.
Okay. And there's Scott Ogney.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. What are we seeing here now?
That's the move, change, address history. So this is something that your clerk, at least in Michigan, can print out for you. This is the document that is derived from your driver's license or through the post office when you do change of address. And this is maintained and held by the Secretary of State office. So this is a correct record. This is 100% accurate. With everyone we see and have pulled, they can verify that they did live in those different spaces during those dates. So this is a trustworthy document.
Yeah.
And this is derived from the Secretary of State. So why she can't have that on the individual voter history is beyond us.
Yeah, and we can pull, so clerks, I'm not actually sure if this, I don't know, Stephanie, if he got this change history from the bureau or the local clerk, but this looks like the same thing. If you ask for your history, your change history from your local clerk, you would get it. That user code shows, so DLT QVF, I'm assuming his driver's license, something QVF, so that when he moved, he changed his address. But that user code now, when you ask your clerk for it, it wouldn't have that column.
Okay. Okay, MCL 750.483A. Prohibiting acts, penalties, retaliate, official proceeding, and threaten or intimidate defined.
Yeah, because those memos say that the clerk's receiving from the bureau. If you give this data out, you could be subject to being investigated.
This sounds like a top-down bunch of nonsense. The elections are supposed to come from the people and bottom up, and they can conduct the election, not being told what to do by the state, who clearly has a problem with having consistent information across the reports. Am I getting this right?
Yes.
Okay.
But the Secretary of State is listed as the chief election officer.
Well, that's kind of backwards, isn't it? Isn't it supposed to be the local? They're just record keepers. They're not supposed to dictate this, are they? Am I getting this right?
Well, they are the chief election officer to help jurisdictions run elections, but they cannot change laws that have to do with elections. They are the chief, just as it comes across as running the elections and helping jurisdictions do that, but they're overstepping that boundary a bit.
Okay. And a person shall not do the following: knowingly or intentionally remove, alter, conceal, destroy, or otherwise tamper with evidence to be offered in a present or future official proceeding. Well, this all has effects on the future, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a problem.
And auditability. There's just no way to audit.
Okay, EPB history. What are we looking at here?
These are the files. So that flash drive that I was talking about, the EPB, when you look on that flash drive, these are the files that are on it. So EPB history is highlighted because that is what happened during that day during voting with everyone who checked in.
Okay.
With, yeah, date, timestamp, everything.
So we have another one here, dynamic.
Yeah, yeah, just it looks like a different election. Yeah.
Okay. Now we coming over here. Now, what am I looking at here?
Hold on, I'm looking something.
make sure you direct me a little bit, because you guys know what we're looking at, and I'm kind of like trying to pick my way through this.
Okay. So when we buy a flash drive to be used for on election day in the EPB, on the electronic poll book, we encrypt it ourselves and password protect it. And we retain those flash drives and those passwords in case we're audited. Well, I guess we retain them. Most of them delete it. And the what we're told is, well, we turn those into the county clerk, or we delete them early because we need to reuse them for the next election, and because we were told to delete it. We lock them up for the retention period and keep them safe, but they're cheap enough to buy a new one. You don't need to reuse them.
Shouldn't they just be retained, or shouldn't that information be retained?
Oh, absolutely. Because it is nowhere else. When they said, oh, you can go get a printout from the county clerk, you're going to get that list of voters you saw earlier.
Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Okay. What about this one?
I believe we've covered this one.
Okay.
This is just showing from the clerk the voter history, jurisdiction.
Okay.
But it no longer, there's no voter ID listed, and there's no date timestamp on it. Yeah. So this is the new, what page are you on, Donna? I'm sorry.
25.
Oh, 25. Yeah. So he explains there what those codes mean, who made those entries into his voting record. Again, no voter ID, no date or timestamp on that. And then the next one is the new report now that clerks will give you if you ask for your vote history.
Wow, it's like missing everything.
Right. Got to protect whoever's making changes, they said.
Yeah, wow. Okay, MCL 168.932, prohibited conduct is a felony. An inspector of election, clerk or other officer or person having custody of any record, election lists of voters, affidavit, return statement of vote, certificates, poll book, or any paper document, or vote of any description, which pursuant to this act is direct to be made, file, or preserve, shall not willfully destroy, mutilate, deface, falsify, or fraudulently remove, or secrete any or all of these items in whole or in part, or fraudulently make any entry, erasure, or alteration to any or all of those items, or permit another person to do so. Kind of looking bad for the Bureau of Elections, me not knowing anything. It sure is looking bad for them, isn't it?
Yes.
And we have another election group that has been FOIA-ing, I think every month, who voted in the 2020 election. So that record for 5 years is supposed to stay static. It's supposed to be exact. And every month we're noticing that people are missing voter ID numbers now. I think we're up to 350,000 voter IDs are now gone from that report.
Oh my goodness.
And the number, that number changes every month. It's not our group FOIAing this, but I've seen all the records, and the number of who voted in the 2020 election changes every month.
Is this something that you guys are a little nervous about talking about out in front of everybody? Is it something that you're kind of watching your words a little bit? Because has there been some threats?
No, but I feel like we all feel a little under pressure that we could have retaliation against us.
Yeah.
I will say yes. We're in the process of putting our house in a trust in a way that if they come after me, or, I incur all kinds of legal fees that I won't cause problems for the family. I am worried I'll be removed from my duties like other clerks have been who question things. But doggone it, I'll fight to the bitter end on this, and do whatever it takes to make our elections safe and secure and real. And they're not.
Do they understand that threat and coercion to Americans whom they work for, that they are subordinate to us? Do they understand what kind of a crime is being committed if people are feeling threatened or coerced to be quiet or shut up? Do they have any idea of how wrong this is, or what they're charged with?
They meaning clerks who are deleting and stuff, right?
I mean, whoever's telling everybody to shut up and not say anything, who is afraid. Do the people who are threatening or coercing, do they have any idea how wrong this is? Or they just don't care? They think they're untouchable, don't they?
They do. They do. Look what Stephanie and Stephanie have gone through. And their next hearing is coming up in May, because Stephanie Scott said, no, you're not going to do maintenance on my tabulator because that will wipe out everything, all the data that's in it, because they're getting ready to do annual maintenance on ours, and it will wipe out the November election. And she stood up for it, and her and Stephanie Scott have been paying the price dearly. I mean, Stephanie Lambert.
There's 3 Stephanies.
I know.
In our group.
There's so many.
That's why I'm Steffi on X.
Yeah, Steffi, that's good, differentiating. Okay, what else do we have here, guys? Page 2. So I go right to let's hold them accountable. It seems like we've got so much election evidence and evidence of maladministration that this should actually be pretty easy to prosecute. And if the prosecutors aren't prosecuting it, then we need to go after the prosecutors too, because they're obstructing. I mean, you don't get to choose what you prosecute. They're innocent.
Yep. These counties don't have the money to do this, or they don't feel like they have the time to invest in the investigation of this, and or they think that half of their county is going to laugh at them for bringing this up or looking into this, because they feel half of them have the other mindset.
Or they're working with the higher ups. Don't want to rock the boat.
I mean, we've tried this in 15 of our 83? Do we have 83 counties?
Yep.
So we haven't been able to get it to go anywhere.
Well, it seems like there's a great big problem here. And I hate to say it, but it seems to me like the state of Michigan is one great big happy crime family of money laundering and protecting each other and protecting crimes. And it's not just in this way, it's so many other ways that I think that as soon as people become more awake to what's going on, hopefully they'll stand up and stop trying to divide us between party lines and whatever else people want to align with is their whatever. I mean, we need to stand as Americans, because we're losing our country over this sort of nonsense. We're not going to have a vote. Our votes don't count. I mean, you can see this right now that the system is it's a joke.
I'll say one more thing. So this early voting, this 9 days of early voting, that's just so they have the data ahead. So they know what they have left, the margin they have left to manipulate in their favor. And then you have our last election where it took 2 weeks to declare a senator. But they had all that time to be able to manipulate ballots and voters who these ballots are attached to, with probably many of these numbers that are out there. People don't even live in these jurisdictions anymore, but they're casting a ballot.
They're casting ballots from dirt lots and yeah.
From dirt
But-
lots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Vacant property.
Yeah. The post office here in our city, the post office, not a PO box, their street address. I went and looked at them like that street address looks familiar. Oh, you can't vote from the post office. You don't live there. But if you go a little further, it does talk about a couple of laws that we wanted to go over. For instance, page 31, 168,509, so GG, and it specifically talks about when you FOIA information from your clerk, from the bureau, whatever, what has to be redacted, and the rest of it is public information. And so what they're saying, the Bureau is saying, is if they give out this EPP data, they possibly could be giving out software secrets, all these cybersecurity issues. I've seen the data. I've given it out. I know, and that's not on there. But this law, there's not that many things that need to be redacted. And then the next, the 168,811 is about the retention. Used to be 24 months in Michigan, but they changed it to go same as federal, 22 months. And that includes the data on the flash drive because it does not exist anywhere else. Once they take that flash drive, they put it in the computer, they upload all that voting history to the QVF so that each record, their history now is updated to show they voted. That flash drive must be retained for 22 months.
And they've clearly not done that.
No.
Okay,
No.
168.811 amended.
I think, was that when it was changed to 22
that's the
months?
22-month one.
Yeah, yeah. The next one I find interesting, unless, Steph, you want to talk about the 810, the poll is delivered to clerk.
Go ahead.
The next, for the prosecuting attorney, page 35, 168,940 is the law that the county, the prosecutor, it is their duty to prosecute if a crime is brought to their attention. And so we've brought crimes to their attention. So that's a huge one. There's one for the sheriff. The next one is for peace officers, sheriffs, whoever, law enforcement, they took it to in their county. So there are laws on the books that say you have to prosecute this. You can't pick and choose what you want to look at.
Did you know that 98% of the cases that are prosecuted in the state of Michigan are for, to my knowledge, a money judgment? Because 18% of that goes into their civil action jurisdiction, retirement funds, etc., for the people that are within the injustice system and the unlawful system.
Wow.
So
no, I did not.
Yeah, there you go. It's all about the money. These people will not do anything that rocks the boat or that will change the power structure or the money coming back to them in one way or another. And this is dead on what these prosecutors are doing. They're only prosecuting thing that's a money judgment so they can up that fund in the civil action jurisdiction. It has nothing to do with justice or with keeping the peace or anything like that.
It's top-down governance.
It sure is. It's collectivism. It's absolutism. It's all of that. And it's unfortunate, but because of that, they're all breaking their oaths of office, all of them, because they're not standing up for what they're supposed to be defending, which is the Constitution and natural rights, as well as our First Amendment rights, right to a speedy trial. Any of this, they're just ignoring it. They're taking their own discretion on what they will look into, not that we tell them to look into something and they look into it.
Yeah. On 40, the 168,509Q talks about the qualified voter file. That they say local clerks, have ownership of this, which is not true. Names get, dumped in from all kinds of places, which they they go to the DMV, get their driver's license, they're added to the QVF. So, but anyway, this talks about the QVF file and that the voter history must be saved, retained 5-year period. Well, it's hard to do that when it just keeps changing. And it changed at my level. So if that Eric source was there at one point and now it's gone and I didn't do it, that doesn't mean I definitely don't have ownership of our QVF because, yeah.
And coincidentally, Jonathan Brader was the chairman of ERIC for a while there.
Yes, he was.
And so there you go. You have another Brader connection, the same Brader that lost 11,000 of my signatures in a room that they never keep signatures in, and only brought them out after I sued in the Supreme Court. And by the way, there was no restitution for Donna for what they did to me.
Horrible.
And then you get people like Sherry's Cleaning on here, who's totally either a Kellyite or something else like that, or somebody that was in on or behind or didn't understand what actually happened.
Right.
It's because you weren't willing to play their game, so they had to get rid of you.
Absolutely. And there was so much that was done to try to pay me off and get me to shut up and such. And it's like, there's not a chance in hell that that's going to happen, because I'm just so offended by this. And I'm really offended by people that are part of this, that are pushing this narrative to say nothing happened, to discredit what you guys have done when the evidence is clear. I mean, it's clear evidence. And you can't look at that as anything other than, some of them, maybe they're ignorant. I don't know if they're ignorant or not, or if they're actually complicit, because the people that were cheating in this whole election scam, and I mean, going back through several elections, including, the problems with the signature gathering. I met several other people in other states this past weekend that had the same problem with the signature gathering.
Oh.
Wow.
So which means this is a coordinated effort across state lines to tank candidates who weren't part of the system.
So they can install a puppet opponent that won't win, like in the 2022,
Yes.
that took the place of the Republican nominee.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're controlling this thing from top to bottom. There's just so many places where they're committing fraud and they're cheating in this system, all the way from the bottom to the top. You can't even dial down on one part of this. It's the whole thing. It's systemic corruption.
Yeah. I did want to bring your attention to page 53, the local line of investigation. So the Scott started this, it's Citizens for Electoral Justice, and there's a board there. Every member on there have worked their butts off to make Locus Standi happen and as clear as possible in their own county. So this kind of talks about how it started. We found people in counties that could lead the Locus. We went to the clerks, where it talks about the Colbeck FOIA audit. Pat Colbeck FOIA'd Secretary of State for who voted in the November 2020 election. And then we are auditing that against the local, like the county level, who voted. And for my county, I'm telling you, the numbers are huge. There are names on Colbeck's list that he got from the state level that are not on my county, and vice versa. And we went through line by line, voter by voter, in several counties to do this. And more info on that to come from Mr. Ogney. But I just really want to say kudos to every single person that's been involved with Locus Standi. And I don't personally see it going anywhere at the state level, not with the governor and the AG we have and Benson. But if we can get into the ear a little bit higher up, this is huge. That I'm not smart enough to tell you or how they're doing it, why they're doing it. But when data doesn't match, there's a big problem, and it's bigger than state level because they're not going to do anything.
Well, it's incredibly unprofessional to carry out one of the largest duties to preserve the United States at a minimum. You know, if these kind of mistakes were made, say, in people's retirement accounts or their bank accounts, any of this, people would feel the pain. But what they're not connecting with is that literally their vote and their choices have been compromised. And if they're going back and they're changing records, or they can't keep a record, or they can't hold a record, and they're blaming it on the software, and they're blaming it on this, that, and the other thing, why aren't they saying, okay, we see there's a problem and we're going to fix this? Nobody's offering a fix to the problems that are clear to those of us who've been looking at this. They're just saying there's no problems, nothing to see here.
Because it keeps them in position. It keeps them in their positions.
Absolutely.
And they're getting funded by these NGOs and kickbacks that the regular public is not getting.
Well, listen to this. Denise makes a good point. They tell us to keep tax records for 7 years. Our elections are more important than taxes, and we keep records for 22 months. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's that double standard going on all the time. Well,
Denise, you're absolutely correct. And the things that really bother me, besides obviously data being manipulated, changed, multiple voter IDs, their voter ID doesn't match up with the clerk's voter ID, is those clerks deleting that data. We've got to find a way, and we're working on it, to get it out to clerks to please think for themselves. And if anyone's out there listening and you can maybe talk to your clerk, you can contact any one of us. We can give you the law, we can give you a copy of the memos and say, please reconsider. If you are deleting data from your EPB, please reconsider that. Put it in an envelope, put it in your locked fireproof closet, and retain it lawfully.
Because honestly, it's the only trusted source we have in our elections. It's the only trusted documents.
wow.
Other than now, this 9 days of early voting, that's all manipulated now too.
So is the absentee ballots. There's no two ways about it. What we have, like, over 1 million records. I heard there's a number. It's over 1 million voters. Is it voters or voter IDs more than what we have voters? Am I getting that right?
Yep.
1 million registrations more than
Voting age.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can't, even for people that don't have maybe a base level on this or haven't been part of any of these investigations, I get it. It's complicated. It's complicated to look at the charts and try to understand and know what's really going on there. But at the base level, we have 1 million more people on the rolls registered than people that are able to be registered. So if
There's one with the first.
That's a whole pool of resources to tie a ballot to tie a fraudulent ballot to.
Yep. And I want to reiterate what Stephanie said earlier. I have the utmost respect for all of our clerks, hardworking, honest people trying to do the right thing, frustrated, honestly, because of people like us that are doing election integrity in the FOIAs. And I get it. It makes a lot more work for them. I see it. I handle our FOIAs. So I don't for 1 minute think clerks are doing anything on purpose, illegally. It is not them. It's at a much higher level. And if anyone can, reach out to your clerk and say, is there anything I can do to help you? Do you need help with your MasterCard files or, anything? I really, really have a lot of respect for all of our clerks at every level there.
And we have done some of that in these counties. I know checkmyvote.org has been keeping a close track of registrations per address or household or apartment. And we've went up and cleaned up a ton of counties and jurisdictions. And these clerks have marked them as inactive because that's all they can do. They can't even take off a voter if they're deceased. That has to go through the state, I'm told. But we've had them mark all of these inactive or
They send out
they can mark them
challenge.
challenged.
Wow.
And so if that ballot comes in, it can be challenged. But then these clerks are noticing that these people that they've marked inactive or challenged are now becoming active or non-challenged.
Really?
Yeah.
It just goes from bad to worse. So I'd like to talk with you guys some more on this because I think there needs to be some more clarification on this and maybe some action steps on how people can hold their both elected and unelected people in our government accountable. And I've given myself the name of the executive accountability manager of the state of Michigan right now. And I think that calling people out for when they fail. Now, if they fail and it's an honest mistake, I get it. Nobody's perfect, but they have the chance to right this. But when they keep making excuses and refuse to change it, and then the prosecutors refuse to prosecute it, and the sheriffs aren't prosecuting, and the judges are just like, well, hey, we want to keep our seat too, so I guess we'll all just shut up here in one big happy family and continue these crimes against we the people. It's not okay.
Because the state will use lawfare against these other elected officials at the county level. They'll use that.
We've seen it. Yeah. We've seen it.
Happened with Stephanie
and then people can't manage their own lifestyle afterward because they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees just to keep themselves out of trouble.
They did the same thing with Donald Trump, is that they used lawfare to paper people to death to either shut them up into being quiet because they can't fight anymore. And that's really what's going on. It's despicable. All these people should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. And you know what? With that said, they're going to have to stand before God. They're absolutely going to have to stand before God with this. And I did a post this morning. I'm going to quickly read this, and then we're going to have to end and cut to our day here. But I thought this was important to talk about faith over fear. The Bible highlights numerous heroes of faith who demonstrated courage, trust, and obedience to God, often in the face of fear and adversity. Many are celebrated in Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith, and other scriptures. And there's different examples. Abraham, Genesis 12:22, and Hebrews 1:8 and 19. Abraham left his homeland for an unknown land God promised him. He trusted God's covenant, waiting for decades for his son, Isaac, and showed ultimate by faith by being willing to sacrifice him when God tested him. Moses, you've got Moses, who raises an Egyptian prince, chose to identify with the oppressed Hebrews. He confronted Pharaoh to free Israel, led them through the Red Sea, and followed God's guidance despite doubts and rebellion and the faith facing death. Rahab, a Canaanite prostitute in Jericho. Rahab hid Israelite spies, risking her life because she believed in God's power. Her faith saved her and her family when Jericho fell. You've got David. David was a young shepherd. David faced Goliath, trusting God for victory. Later as king, when he proved his faith, he relied on God through battles, betrayal, and personal failures, writing the Psalms of faith. Queen Esther risked death by approaching King Xerxes uninvited to save the Jews from genocide, acting after fasting and prayer. Her courage led to the people's deliverance. Daniel, Noah. I mean, the stories go on and on. When people act with faith, and I'm just going to say it, you can rely on God and he will see you through. He never calls you to something. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but he will see you through in the end. But it relies on us in standing in faith and stepping forward with that faith, knowing that God will protect us. It's faith over fear, and watch the miracles happen when you get outside of your comfort zone and you rely on God and say, I know this is the right thing. I have to do it. because it's the right thing to do before God, and God will see you through every single time. It's amazing. And that's the only time that you really see the huge miracles of God, is when we risk it all for doing the right thing in the face of tyranny and oppression and all of that. And it's a hard thing to do for a lot of people. I understand how hard that is to step out, but I'm going to tell you what, you do that and God will step up and help you. He'll provide you with help every single time. So let's say a prayer here, girls, and then we're going to go off to our day, because I've got another meeting to go to and I've got a 2-hour drive and I'm already late. So
Okay.
dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the wonderful people that are willing to step forward and do the right thing, like Shelly and Stephanie and Stephanie and Stephanie and all the Stephanies, and the people that aren't afraid to come forward, knowing that first of all, it's the right thing to do, and that you will always make a way when there seems no other way. You open doors, you open windows, you open doors, you give us paths that we would never ever think to do on our own. We trust you. All we got to do is just keep walking and following you, not the fear that's out there that's trying to shut us down and stop us from doing what it is you call us to do. We love you so very much, and we thank you. I thank you just incredibly for Shelly and for Stephanie, and I ask that your favor on them, everyone in Locus Standi, on Scott, that your favor would rest mightily upon them, that you would give them your protection and protect all those whom they love, protect their homes, put a hedge of protection around them. Make the people that are breaking the law, send them powerful disruption to their evil plans that they can't recover from. And either they turn and fall on their face before you in repentance, or that they're brought down for their evil deeds to absolutely oppress, steal from, and attack the innocent people of this state and the entire world. We know that you're with us. We trust you in all things. We can go forward today very happy, knowing that you're going before us. We have no fear whatsoever. We just have to follow your lead. And we're just thankful that you're a great friend to us. We want to be a friend to you. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Have a safe drive.
Thank you. And this is where we go to ding, ding, my 2022 protest. Go to brandenburgforgovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I'd like to have a discussion with Donald J. Trump, calling Gretchen out this weekend in cowboy boots. That was a great walk of shame, President Trump, by the way. It was fantastic. And hats off to you. And so, and with all that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you live in. God bless America. Make it a great day. We've got all sorts of opportunities to serve God here. And being truth tellers is a big deal right now, considering all the liars, cheats, and thieves that are out there, and people who just want to divide and say things that are not true about other people because they're defending their little castle of bias. It's like everything should be questioned. All of us, myself included, because even good people can make mistakes, and we can't be above questioning. No one is above questioning, and none of us are going to be right 100% of the time. So we rely on each other, as not as Republicans or Democrats or Kellyites, Sherry cleaning, or any of this other thing. We need to come together as Americans, as one family under God, seeking the truth, because the truth is that the prize is peace. It's not fighting like a bunch of little sophomoric idiots out there. We need to be coming together and finding the truth and being willing to stand with each other for the truth and the best answer, not for any other reason than we're doing it for God. We'll talk to you guys later. I think I'm going to be back on tomorrow, but I don't know who's coming on yet. So here we go. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.